It's pretty tough to sit through the faux concern this question time around Labor's policies on energy, and particularly our policies on power prices, when we've just sat through a decade where we had 22 failed attempts to deliver an energy policy in this country. Now, those failed attempts weren't just a catastrophic failure of policy aptitude. They left businesses, they left many in our community without the certainty they needed to be able to make investment decisions, to be able to make decisions on behalf of their businesses, to drive investment and growth. And that lack of policy certainty has left us behind on an international scale when it comes to Australian businesses and our approach and responses to climate change. For a decade, we saw the other side argue about whether climate change existed, not doing the hard and detailed policy work required to deliver an energy policy that would deliver certainty to Australian businesses. And that's what they now have under an Albanese Labor government. Already we legislated 43% by 2030, net zero by 2050, policies enshrined by law to give that certainty to our business community, to drive investment in renewable energy and technology. And that's backed up by our Powering Australia policy, which is designed to put more energy into the grid, renewable energy, which is our cheapest form of energy, which will put pressure on energy prices. So I would argue that the concern expressed in question time today was faux concern. If you were really concerned about getting the policy levers in place to make a meaningful difference on energy prices and indeed on climate change, you would have spent the last decade designing an energy policy that you could deliver. Now, that's not to say the impact of energy prices at the moment in the cost of living challenges before us isn't very real and isn't very serious. Of course it is, and that's something that our government is looking at, and work is underway, as Minister Gallagher has said in question time today. And that's in addition to the other measures we're taking to address the cost of living crisis, measures like making access to early learning and education more affordable for over 1 million families, a piece of legislation being worked through the Senate today. Extending paid parental leave by 6 months to 2026, delivering cheaper medicines and more affordable housing, and yes, as was discussed today, getting wages moving again. Now, unlike the other side, where keeping wages low was a deliberate feature of the economic architecture, we are unashamedly keen to get wages moving again. We've supported an increase to the minimum wage. We've supported a wage rise for aged care workers. But there is more work to do to fix the broken bargaining system that we are currently dealing with in Australia. And that's what the legislation that I hope we will be debating in this chamber soon will seek to deal with, addressing wages for workers like our early childhood workers, who do some of the most important work in our country, nation-building, life-changing work, and whose wages have failed to keep up with the value they are contributing to our community. We need to fix the broken bargaining system so we can support workers like our early childhood workers and indeed many low-paid workers across our economy who are being left behind by our current industrial relations system. So I welcome a debate on that, and I welcome the debate which will happen in this chamber in the next few weeks. Deputy President, the other Senator Smith mentioned that today is indeed the 6-month anniversary of the Albanese Labor government, and it's an anniversary which I think is worth celebrating. Already our government has taken significant action to fix the mess and the failures of the previous government over the past decade, failures in aged care, failures in early learning, failures on wages, fixing our overseas relationships. Overwhelmingly, what I hear most often as I travel around South Australia is that it finally feels like adults are in charge of the government and doing the work that they expect their government to be doing. That's what our government is about, not feigning faux concern over policies. You know, you actually had a decade to do something about it. If you really genuinely cared about getting wages moving, you wouldn't have made low wages a deliberate feature of the economic architecture. If you really cared about tackling energy prices and tackling climate change, you would have delivered an energy policy one time along those 22 attempts which actually worked and actually delivered for Australians. It's faux concern. We're doing real work.